Ready?
$50 or something to start.
Yeah, the boutonnieres were.
That's what it's called.
Good afternoon. This is the Historic Design Review Board. It is March 8 to 2023. It's 2 p.m. This Historic Design Review Board is an architectural review board authorized by South Carolina Code of Laws. The Historic Design Review Board seeks to preserve and protect the historic character and architectural integrity of Beaufort's National Historic Landmark District. Board decisions are to be in accordance with city ordinances. To ensure a fair and orderly process, the meeting will be conducted in the following manner. Approval of previous meetings minutes. 2, introduction of application. 3, applicant's presentation. 4, city's staff report. 5, opening of public comment. Participants will come to the podium, please, state their name and address, their relation to the project, and their comments. All comments are to be addressed to the board. The public should not engage in direct conversation with anyone other than the board. 6, closing of public comment, followed by board discussion and board decision. It is important that applicants receive a fair and impartial hearing. Emotional outbursts, cheering, and clapping, which create an adversarial atmosphere, will not be tolerated. Thank you, everyone, for attending. First up is our review of minutes from February 8. Are there any comments, or is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Right. We'll vote on that. Maxine?
Yeah, aye.
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 Thank you. Our first application is 807 Craven Street.
All right, so 807 Craven Street, the applicant is requesting final approval for alterations to a single-family residence. This property is located within the Beaufort Preservation Neighborhood, and this is the first application submitted for this project. This is the property location. This is looking at the property at 807 Craven. This is across the street. This is looking, I believe, east on Craven Street and looking west. And with that, we will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Okay. Is there a representative for 807 Craven here? Don Juan Roofing is listed as the applicant.
What do you say?
Nobody's raising their hand online. There's 2.
Mr. Chair, make a motion, we table this hearing, and if the applicant walks in prior to the meeting, we'll retable it.
Sounds good to me. I'll second that. I guess we'll vote on it. Maxine?
Aye.
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 Okay. So we'll move on to the second, or B, 901 Craven Street.
All right, so the applicant is requesting preliminary approval for construction of a new Harriet Tubman monument located between 901 and 907 Craven Street. This property is in the Historic Preservation Neighborhood. And then the background for it, this project received conceptual approval at the April 2018 HRB meeting. The applicant was granted an extension for the conceptual approval in March of 2020, but this approval has since expired. And this is the property's location. This is looking at the vacant area between 901 and 907 Craven. This is looking across the street, down Craven. And with that, we will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Welcome, Reverend Hodges.
Good afternoon. First of all, let me thank you for the work that you're doing for the city of Beaufort and for the state of South Carolina. I am Reverend Kenneth Hodges, pastor of the Tabernacle Baptist Church. The address is 911 Craven Street, and we do have some of our members with us today. In the spring of 1862, Harriet Tubman came to Beaufort in the midst of the Civil War. She stayed in Beaufort for almost 3 years, and while she was here, she served in many capacities. as a nurse, a scout, a spy. She opened an eating house and also a washing house. But she was also a person who helped to lead a military raid called the Combahee River Raid. The only aspect of Harriet Tubman's life during the Civil War took place in Beaufort. So we looked at it and we saw that there was a void. All across the country, people are recognizing Harriet Tubman in her home state of Maryland and where she went after the Civil War to New York, Auburn, New York, and lived out the rest of her life. The only component that was not highlighted is her stay in Beaufort. And for a long time, there were many who did not even realize that Harriet Tubman came to Beaufort and spent some time here. She lived right in the area of where the church is. She said she stayed across from the arsenal, so it was right in that area. I have been working with the Harriet Tubman projects for a number of years. When I served in the General Assembly, the first piece of legislation that I introduced was to name the bridge, the future bridge over the Combahee River, the Harriet Tubman Bridge. That was passed, and we presided as we dedicated that in 2008. Since then, a lot have been going on in the life of Harriet Tubman. Movies, documentaries, several books. She is scheduled to be on the $20 bill in 2030. And she is perhaps the only person that has 2 national parks named after her, one in Maryland and also one in New York. So we launched an initiative in 2016 at Tabernacle Baptist Church to build a monument to recognize Harriet Tubman for her presence in Beaufort during the Civil War. We have been working on it since 2016, raising the fund from the private sector, basically. And we've brought this project before the board previously. In 2018, it was approved conceptually. Then it expired, and we renewed it. But then again, something called COVID came in and shut down a lot of initiatives, our fundraising efforts, but also many of the small businesses that were working on the project. So now we're coming forward to get the project approved and to bring Harriet back to Beaufort. We are so close. All phases of it has been completed, the enlargement of the model, and they are in the bronze fabricating process now. They are sandblasting, and then they will go to patinas. The entire monument will be brought to Beaufort. I brought a model of it. A lot of people, it's hard for them to envision it because they look at the pictures that we have. That was basically for marketing purposes. The monument is designed by world-renowned sculptor Ed Dwight. Ed Dwight has done over 130 public monuments. The African American monument on the State House grounds in Columbia was designed by Ed Dwight. A recent monument on the Texas State House ground, millions of dollars, was designed by Ed Dwight. Once we told him about the project that we were working on, he was very excited, and he said, we need to make this happen. And Ed Dwight is approaching 90, and this will be perhaps, as he says, one of his last major monuments. So we're excited about that. We do know that there are some recommendations that has come from the various boards, and certainly we look forward to integrating those recommendations to make this a great monument. Basically, what it will all be, it will be a footing, a circular footing for the monument, and a path leading up to it. And then we'll build the landscape around that. But we want to answer any questions if you have any, and then we'll go from there. That's just a brief overview. Yeah.
Thank you. We may have some more questions as we get into the board discussion.
Okay, good. And please feel free to look at the monument. It'll be exactly like that. The coloration will be similar. And then on the back will also be some panels where we can do some of the things there as well. But we'll also be doing it on the other properties.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
We'll now have the staff report on the project, please.
All right, so the staff acknowledgements, the proposed monument is located between the two contributing structures, 901 Craven Street, built circa 1845, and 907, built circa 1884. And these structures are property of Tabernacle Baptist Church. And staff does not believe that design has changed since it received conceptual approval in April 2018, based on the drawings that we received from the city. So moving to staff condition number 1, staff supports this project and believes that this is a significant contribution to the Beaufort Historic District. Staff supports the height, scale, and mass of the monument and base itself, but believes that the site and landscaping detract from the monument itself. Given the small site and significance of the monument, staff recommends the applicant simplify the site design and amount of landscaping to maintain the monument as the focal point. Staff offers the following comments to reduce the detailing and of the site and landscaping. So I'm going to pull up the landscaping plan. So comment 1A, removing the brick columns and tabby and brick walls from the project entirely, minimizing the amount of brick and bluestone pavement, and instead consider outlining the paths in brick or bluestone and keeping the paths themselves as gravel, placing any educational material such as short narratives or QR codes on plaques that are mounted to the adjacent buildings or inscribed on the base of the statue. Staff does not believe these plaques should be standalone items. Removing some of the benches and relocating the remaining benches near to the adjacent buildings, and relocating trash receptacles near to the adjacent buildings as well. Number 2, in future submissions, the applicant shall coordinate renderings with landscape and site plans. Number 3, staff believes that the proposed light fixtures are not appropriate given the uplighting they appear to project. Applicant to refer to the following sections in Chapter 5 of the Beaufort Code regarding lighting, particularly in transect-based districts, the height of the light post shall not exceed 15 feet above grade. This section was later amended to state that in pedestrian-oriented areas, the height of the light post shall not exceed 15 feet above grade. Additionally, wherever possible, outdoor seating areas, building entrances, and walkways shall be illuminated using ground-mounted fixtures not more than 4 feet tall. Staff recommends the applicant increase the amount of smaller ground-level, low-voltage light fixtures as opposed to the large pole-mounted fixtures. Staff believes smaller ground-level fixtures are a better solution given this project's placement in a residential area with street lighting already present. And light fixtures in excess of 1,800 lumens shall use full cutoff lenses or hoods to prevent glare or spillover from the project site onto adjacent lands and streets. Staff comment number 4, in future submissions, applicant to submit cut sheets for the brick and bluestone as well as any light fixtures. Number 5, applicant to confirm that the existing trees on the west side of the property are to be retained. And number 6, in future submissions, applicant to label the proposed plant species on the landscape plan as well. And with that, our recommendation is conceptual approval with conditions noted. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now time for public comment, if there is any.
Cassandra Knoppel with the Historic Beaufort Foundation. The Historic Beaufort Foundation is very excited about the Harriet Tubman Monument and applauds the vision in bringing this important effort to fruition. Our Preservation Committee understands that the renderings included in the packet are not the final vision for the plaza surrounding the monument and monument base. We are in support of staff's comments and the intent to ensure that the paving, plantings, and lighting will be in keeping with those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No virtual comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, we will close public comment and open board discussion. I have a few questions, maybe just to start out. The designer's not here by chance, the landscape designer? Okay. Any thoughts about the lighting? I didn't see the lighting actually on the plan.
Yeah, there are two concepts. The discussion on the lighting really came up off of that image.
Okay.
And we did that mainly for marketing purposes.
Understood.
And the person the graphic artist that did the visual for marketing integrated those lighting, that's not going to be a part of it, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll address that, yeah.
All right, thank you. So a lot of item number 3 is moot. My opinion is number 1A, I don't think that all the tabby brick walls need to be removed, but I think it would be stronger simplified. But overall, I'm pleased and want it to move forward.
I had a question also about the tabby and brick walls. How tall are those?
I think
Are
he
they
had
for
that
like-
about 3 feet. It wasn't that, just wrapped around the back. That's what, when you were talking about?
Yes,
I think Roger had that about 3 feet.
that's what I
36
was
inches or
thinking.
so.
Is that for
Very short.
people to sit on, rest, or? Because I can
That's
see.
part of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see a lot of elderly people or children visiting, and with the benches out of way, I can see people,
We'll have a place.
having a place to rest. So I'm with Jeremiah, I'm not totally against removing all of those.
We just wouldn't want it high enough to interfere with the monument. I think if it's
Yeah.
36 or lower, yeah.
I think the drawings say 4-foot-high brick wall at the front and 8 at the back. Pretty tall.
Yeah, the 8-foot is a little tall.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, and that, even at 36 inches, it's not an ideal sitting height
Right.
Yeah.
for anybody who's small or immobile. But I'm not sure sitting is necessarily a thing to achieve here either, so I'd probably want to do a height that would maybe even discourage that. But anyway, I think I'm also feel similar. Is there anything in the staff conditions that you guys feel strongly about in any of the?
No, we are in line with that. The gravel, I think that'll be high maintenance, and we are going to have a lot of students and all that. I would definitely want the walkways bricked
Correct, okay, so
instead of gravel. It's just going to be hard to maintain that over the next 75 or 100 years. Yeah.
I'm actually good with that.
Me too.
Hardscaped.
Well, I would say that they're asking for preliminary approval, but there's really not a landscaping plan here, and all the comments I've heard so far as relates to the
this-
scape around the,
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
This was not in my packet, but I printed it from Dropbox.
okay, so but is that actually what they're asking for preliminary today? Because what I heard was they're asking for the monument and the other stuff would come later.
That's what I heard.
The final plan, that's preliminary, a part of it as well.
So you want the one as submitted on, and I didn't get a copy of
Yeah,
Dropbox.
that's,
It wasn't
yeah,
in
we
my
submitted,
packet.
yeah.
Can I see that for a minute?
Yeah. That actual plan actually corrected some of the things that brought up in that first initial meeting, yeah. But that's just preliminary, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not upset at all about the idea of trying to massage just to fix, to finish it, and I understand you're not quite there yet. And I don't think anybody would ever possibly object to the concept of what you're trying to do, and we're all championing the cause. I think my biggest concern, and I'm a neighbor to that, is the context of the two historic buildings standing there and trying to do something that overshadows and is too bold in texture and in color it's going to really diminish those buildings, and I'll tell you why, all right? So you just renovated a building on the left, an 1845 building some 3 years or 4 years ago. It has brick pillars. They're faux brick pillars, but they're still brick pillars underneath that house. The one on the right, I think, has some original brick pillars on it, 2 different tile bricks altogether. So when you introduce a third product into this line, I think you need to be very careful about what that balance is and how bright or contrasting it is to the surrounding buildings, or they're going to look really diminished and aged, and it might be a problem. Landscaping might help solve some of that on those edges, to soften the edges. But every time since y'all started, as I drive down that road, I visualize that statue sitting there. And I know it's going to be a very good fit. And I believe it's 14 over 14 feet high from
About
ground.
14 from the bottom of the granite base to the top of Harriet's
Top
head.
of Harriet's head.
Yeah.
She's just over 7 foot, I think, in statute, right?
About that, the top part, yeah. But it's up about a little over 6 feet to the head of the soldiers as well.
And the other thing about, as a neighborhood and on the fringe of a downtown, that lighting in the church property is pretty subtle, but it's been a fairly safe place, having lived there a number of years. Overlighting it could be a problem, and underlighting it could be a problem. So I think you won't know the lighting until you actually get the monument set and actually can do some lighting tests to understand what the refraction is off the statue and what you're trying to do. With some uplight, for example. So uplight's not facing the streets, it doesn't blind passerbys or drivers, but something to shadow her would be incredible at night. Opportunity to light up the top of the statue, but subtle enough to where it's not lighting up the treetops and the sides of the buildings, right? So it creates a unique focal point. So as far as what's being submitted for preliminary, I don't see enough arguments that we wouldn't, and I would support it. And so I plan to support it with staff conditions noted, because I haven't heard you push back anything related.
And it may be pushed back a little further than that circular drawing on this. It may go back a little further where that little second circle is in that range, yeah.
Gotcha.
When is it expected to be delivered if it's being worked on?
We are hoping, it will be this year.
Oh, it will be this year, okay.
Yeah, but what we're looking at is, and June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 2023 is actually the 160th anniversary of the Combahee River Raid. And we are looking at that date to be, if we
So
can get the
relatively soon.
base, if we can get the base and everything in place. We know all the landscape and all that's always done after the monument is there. Anyway, you have to have your electrical conduit and all that run underground first. But we hoping that we will have a foundation where we can start receiving. I know the first thing that will come in is that granite base, and it'll have to find a home when it comes in. And there's a strong possibility that we will have the monument in for that anniversary celebration.
Yeah. And I have to clarify one comment I made is that I support staff comments, but also support Reverend Hodges on the gravel versus the brick.
Okay.
I think gravel would be a mistake. I think that just knowing about maintenance and the oak trees and the tree roots and everything we have going on here, it'd be a dirt mess in a hurry.
Yeah.
But I support you in a brick if we can get the right brick picked, or some combination of some type of bluestone or brick.
Somehow it seems like bluestone would be better to me.
Seems like it would.
Seems like
I
it
think
would,
it
see, it
would, too.
wouldn't be so bright.
Right.
There's a
Maybe
section
like-
of that street too where there's bluestone leaned against
Yeah,
it's
I
a
think
curbing
just to the right.
to the right of that. So you're already using that on the property, that type of stone that's leaning against the,
They're looking at some of that, yeah.
some of that's subtle and it looks.
Yeah.
It looks
fits.
like gravel in a way. I mean, it kind of looks a little, it's got more of that gray, not so,
Right, the
shocking.
tone is right.
yeah.
I'm in agreement with all of staff's recommendations and the consideration of bluestone for the walkway. Will we get a chance to see these light fixtures and weigh in on the brick wall? If we support staff's recommendations, that's just allowing them to move ahead with getting the monument in place, and all the other questions that staff has raised will come back to us. Is that correct?
I think we're asking for preliminary. I would like to go preliminary. They get the details sorted out for the monument and the placement and all that, and then they're going to have to ask for final at some point, and we got to decide. All right, so you give them preliminary today, they're coming back at another bite at the apple, and it really may be just for the placement of the monument. And then they may have to come back with a landscaping plan and a lighting plan once they understand what that is. Is that something that could be done?
Yeah, basically, what we're planning on coming back in April with a lot of those details on paper.
Okay.
And then hopefully,
they
if
may have
there's
it by then.
anything else that needs to move beyond that, we'll be able to address it. But we are hoping that we will have, samples and everything in that package so that we can,
So preliminary is appropriate, they'd come back for final before anything's done, and they may have all those questions answered, is what I'm hearing.
yeah.
If staff could answer this, can the applicant move forward with the placement of the statue? And then I'll also note that there's a month lead time for the submittals, so
Yeah,
unless it's in today, it won't be on April's agenda, unfortunately.
Okay, all right.
yeah. Yes, I was going to cover that too, so thank you, Jeremiah. But I think as long as there's a good thought about what the rest of the site is going to do, because the last thing you want to do is approve a location, and then as they start to develop the site further for a new location, for example, if they, Maria's left-handed, so I always have to flip this mouse. If they're talking about moving it back here, and then we approve that, and they get the foundation in, and then they realize they're running into some hiccups with the site design, that could be a problem for them. So as long as they all felt really good with that and really gave us at least a master plan like we have here, I'd be fine letting them get the foundation in for that. That is the site for the monument, and then let's work on other details later.
Wouldn't it be cleaner to make today's a final on statue placement, and then do a preliminary on site design? And
Well, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but did you mention that you might push the statue back?
The only reason I said that is, it's where it is now, it really puts it right between the two buildings. If we was going to push it back a little further, it kind of give a little more space. And what you raised earlier about, how it impacts those two buildings that stand there, if it pushed back just a little further, I think it will address that issue. And if you ever walk out there, you'll see what I'm saying, especially on the 901 building. If you go back just a little further, you see there's just a little garden type area there. And it will not be directly between the two buildings. I mean, we have no problem with it either way. It's just that would make the walkway a little longer, and I see no problem with that.
And it might reduce the impact on the adjoining buildings?
That's really the reason why we are proposing that. It will not impact those two buildings. It'll push it back further. And if you look at that lot, all behind there, that's vacant space. We don't want to go too far back because it will diminish its effect on the public. But if you went back another 30 feet or so, I think you would be in good shape.
And what is your feeling about the historical plaques that
Yeah, I have no problems with that. They say freestanding plaques. Yeah, I have no problem with that because we'll be you'll be able to add plaques to tell the full story. The sculptor also says that the way that the monument is designed, there are a lot of plaques can go, stories can go on the back of the monument as well. That's how it's built.
yeah.
We don't want to do anything that's going to weight it down too much, because I imagine they'll have to be attached to it using some sort of screws or whatever. We don't want anything that's going to deteriorate. But a lot of that will be, and I like what they say about the adjacent buildings, because we just want to open up a space. I mean, you envision students coming around just frolicking and elders at the same time, and they could just walk on around and read more about that era, Harriet Tubman, and some other things, yeah.
Yeah, I'm only caught, Mr. Chair, on the issue of preliminary. We already got one thing kind of fixed versus a final on the statue piece, because I think this other piece is going to take a while to figure out and involve the landscaping and the.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a month.
Asking for conceptual.
No, they're asking for preliminary.
Sorry.
They're
On
asking
the-
for conception.
Are they?
That's what I'm reading, but I could be wrong.
The applicant is requesting preliminary.
Yeah. I think it was conceptual last time and it's preliminary this time.
Yeah.
The way I read it, I see that on there.
It's not final, is how I read it.
Yeah, it's attached.
What about allowing the applicant to work with us on the placement
Yeah.
of it? And then from there, they'll come back with a site plan, kind of flushed out.
I could go.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, as long as there's no I mean, I hear the statue's being made. It's coming to Beaufort. The question is, it's coming to Beaufort. So, and I don't hear anybody saying they shouldn't bring it, right? So I would like to give them final to place the statue, then that's done. And then it's an issue, the other pieces can be cleared up as we go.
Except for they don't know where they want it right now.
But they can work with staff
Okay,
within
yes,
the
okay, yes,
distance of
okay,
the
yeah, okay, that, yeah.
pushback, you
We'll
know.
give final, so we're giving final approval for staff to
Well,
work with them.
I would make that motion if I get support from it.
I would
Yes,
support that.
I support it.
Okay.
I'm good with that too, but I do just want to say that I think having it where it is, you'll be hanging out between two buildings, and it'll feel like an outdoor room, and I think that feels nice. Rather than pushing it away from the street, I wouldn't want people to walk by and just pass.
Right, yeah.
I want them to see it.
I actually like how it hangs at the front line of that left wing on the building to the right, how
Yeah.
the sight line is almost like a proper setback for it, creating that courtyard in front of it between the two porches.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, if it pushes back just a little on that little wing, it gives you a lot more space to the side, yeah. It's still between the building, but it kind of opens it up without going back too far. You don't want to go on the other half of the property, which is more property behind it than it is up front, yeah.
30 feet feels too far to me.
That what?
30 feet feels too far to me.
Yeah, I'd be careful going too far back. I'd be real
yeah.
careful with that.
Yeah.
But I think you have to see it there, or you have to kind of maybe put a story pole up for staff and kind of understand where that, but
We'll work with them and go into it.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the statue placement with staff giving assistance for final on this meeting. And so we get that out of the way, and that the applicant will come back for a preliminary on, and possibly final on site plan development. That's a motion.
A
Second.
second, okay.
Okay, is that clear? Placement on the placement of the statue? Okay, let's vote.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
All right. I need to fill out the recusal forms, but I'm going to step off because the next couple projects are by the firm that I work at.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we go to the next item, we'll make sure that we have anybody else join us. Did item A, the roofing company, show up yet? Don't see anybody. So we're going to go to item C and have staff introduction.
All right, so 1204 Green Street, the applicant is requesting preliminary approval for alterations to a single-family residence. This property is located within the Beaufort Conservation Neighborhood, and this application received conceptual approval at the January 2023, I should say, HRB meeting. And this is the property's location. This is the property itself. This is looking west on Green Street, and east on Green Street. And the decision letter from the January meeting. And with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Great, thank you.
Hi. So.
Page up, page down.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I guess I want to address some of the staff comments from the last meeting, if that's okay? Or from, no, these recent staff comments, yeah.
Well, we'd like for you to present what you're trying to do, and
Yeah.
we're going to be able to get into the staff comments. You're welcome to. But we're going to also hear full staff comments. They've only introed for so far.
Right, okay, so we are looking to expand the great room at the front of the house and add an addition at the rear, which will be an office. And those are the main changes to the massing of the building. And at the, let's see, I'll go to the proposed elevations. At the front, we are proposing a gabled dormer, for which we have found precedent
And the hope of the client is to add, because the building doesn't have any sort of crawl space beneath, or it sits right at grade pretty much. So the client wanted to add some prominence to the front facade while still keeping to the fabric of the neighborhood. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, great. I know be lots of good questions coming up, but we'll need to get the staff's presentation, and then we'll know exactly what the staff is thinking.
All right, so let's see. The few staff acknowledgements, this property is located within the conservation neighborhood, but is not listed as a contributing resource. County tax records and aerial images date the structure to 2005. And from the previous meeting, the proposed rear addition encroaches 6 inches into the 6-foot side yard setback. At the conceptual review in January, staff granted a 10% administrative adjustment to allow this 6-inch encroachment. So moving on to the staff conditions, staff condition number 1, applicant has not removed the front-facing gable roof, but has removed the central protruding section of the front porch. If you recall from last time, the front porch was more of a T section, so they removed that central area. And since this is a newer building, staff supports the changes and believes a small window in the front gable adds greater visual interest. Number 2, the applicant has not demonstrated compliance with section 241A3 and confirmed that the lot coverage does not exceed 55%, with the note that an additional 10% for impervious surfaces is permitted. The applicant has also not demonstrated compliance with section 241A4 and confirmed the frontage build-out does not exceed 75%. And these items were conditions of the previous staff report, so we just want to see documentation for those compliances. Number 3, the applicant proposes to eliminate 2 windows on the current west elevation at the kitchen. The applicant has instead added one 30-30 window above the sink. Staff supports this addition. Staff believes the second window was not added in order to allow for additional cabinet space in the kitchen, but requests clarification from the applicant regarding why a second window was not added in this room. Number 4, the applicant has added a step down from to grade from the great room. Staff supports this addition as well. Number 5, applicant to note the material of the rear office stairs, railings, balusters, and newel posts. Number 6, applicant has removed 1 window from the master bedroom to create a door to the office. The applicant has not introduced any new windows in the master bedroom, as was mentioned in the previous staff report. Staff believes that the long wall without windows is visually unappealing and continues to recommend the addition of a window either in the master bedroom or the powder room on that facade. And staff comment number 7, the applicant has provided a diagram showing the areas of proposed faux grain and smooth cementitious siding. Staff believes that the combination of both the smooth and faux wood grain siding, particularly when both types are located on the same facade, lacks cohesiveness. However, staff would support the use of smooth textured siding on the front and sides of the main house and faux grain siding on the rear addition where the office and new closet are located. So with that, our recommendation is preliminary approval with conditions noted.
Thank you. All right, at this point, we'll see if there's any public comment related to this project. Is there anyone online?
No hands raised on Zoom,
No
Mr. Chair.
hands raised on Zoom. And how about in the audience, HPF?
Thank you. Cassandra with Historic Beaufort Foundation. Our Preservation Committee reviewed the project and is in agreement with staff comments.
Great, thank you. All right, at this point, we'll bring it up to the board for discussion. And if anyone wants to start with that. You know, we're hearing it's a fairly new structure is getting modified. It looks like they're widening by 10'3" across the front, which would require, and I can be corrected easily, but the center line of the existing gable will have to move to the left. And it looked like the rear gable would continue to be where it's at. So what you're doing is taking the front porch either off or adding to it, but you're moving the gable off the existing rooftop and sliding its center line in the building, correct? And adding a window to it, I think is what you're trying to do there, to give it a 5-bay opening rather than the existing 4-bay opening, which puts the door centered, which is not there now. I don't believe the existing conditions
Yeah,
show
it's
it.
on the right side.
So the complete front changes, nothing changes on the right side. And the question about the windows, your drawing shows, your elevation plan, an existing floor plan shows a window in the bedroom, and then your proposal shows a window in the bedroom, but staff's commenting there was no window in the bedroom.
No, they're saying on that one long wall, there's no window on that,
On the left, on the
the
east side?
bed wall of the master bedroom.
On the west.
Oh, okay.
There are
Right.
no windows on that wall, which I think is problematic personally.
Gotcha.
I mean, I think it wouldn't be hard, I think it'd be nice for a powder room, but you also could easily put one, you know, if you're facing the bed to the left of the bed there, just to break up that wall.
Yes.
Comments, why don't you go ahead, staff, if the board doesn't mind, and comment on the windows.
Yeah, fine, yeah.
Go ahead, comment on the windows for us.
So, that part of the house is not really that visible from the street. And I know that the owner already has plans for the exterior wall. They're planning to make a very nice outdoor space. So it's not going to be blank. There's going to be something there. They are still
Yeah,
working through it.
Our plans are
It's-
for Mike Foss, I'm the owner, 1204 Green. Our plans is for an herb garden. We don't have a large yard or an area to put a garden, so, in the spring, planting seedlings, other decorative plants hanging on that wall would take up about 10 to 12 feet of that blank wall space, which that's our intended use for it, even as it stands now, because there's nothing there now next to the door. So that fixture would have to be broken up and would cover any window if we did break it up. So, our plan was to put that herb garden there as a decorative feature for the side patio. Again, it can't be seen from the street. I took some photos of the rest of the house. The second house on the property, the entire back of the house has no window. The other side of the house has no window. The house next door, county housing, front facing, there's not a single window on the front of the house. This is not visible from the street at all. So.
I mean, I understand the concept that from the street view, it's not very visible. It's not visible at all.
Not with that addition.
Right.
But then you can also make the argument could be made that okay, they won't live here forever.
They what?
They won't live here forever and maintain that garden on that spot. And I don't know, how does that?
Yeah, does the bedroom have light at all?
Yeah, it does
Currently, there's 2 windows on the back of the house, and we were taking one of those windows out for the door into the new office, but that door will be a 3/4 pane glass, and then we're adding windows and a sliding or French door on the other side. So the introduction of light through there will actually be greater through that glass door in between, separating the bedroom and the office.
So the light comes through the office?
Correct.
Yes.
Can you slide the east elevation up?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, that's what we're talking about there.
So what about even did you consider maybe shuttered fake windows?
I think that's,
I mean, I've done them on my house.
let's hear staff comment on that.
You hate those?
I'm not a big proponent of false windows and false fenestration, but especially since there's no other shutters on this structure at all. It just looks out of place. I do agree on, I know that this is probably not, certainly a good part of this is not very visible from the street. I just think about the experience of that space. I think that a small window in the powder room would do a lot to break that up. That powder room is kind of tucked close to this corner here. I don't know that necessarily the window has to go into the bedroom.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It just feels like that wall wants to be
Is that-
architecturally.
Is that the bed wall?
Yeah, it is.
Yes. The owner would be willing to consider a window in the powder room.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I think it would prevent from looking like a mobile home addition.
That's a good statement.
Yeah, that's what it feels like when I look at it, like as if you've from anybody seeing it,
Right.
looking in, I think would add value to your house, actually, for future resale even.
Okay, well, we'll work with the
Comment.
architect on the size and placement of that window in the powder room then.
Yeah.
But look, if the board members here thinks one window is going to solve it for you, I support that. I mean, if
Yeah.
that's the issue of a single window and the
Yep.
staff kind of agrees.
I'd
then-
rather see two, but if we,
Yeah.
I'm okay with the one in the powder.
Well, let's move on to something else. Anything
Okay.
else about the house?
Yeah,
that,
anything else that you want us to,
Let's talk about siding for a minute. I heard a
Yes,
comment.
the siding. If I could just go over the diagram with you, I'll put it up as well. Oh, I went too far, my bad. Okay, here. So it is the intent of the owner to have the smooth siding that staff recommends at the entirety of the front addition of the house. So that main part, which you see from the street, will be all smooth siding. But we do want to propose and stick with keeping that existing, which is relatively new, faux grain siding on the sides and at the rear. Again, it is not the owner's wish to reside the whole house. And it should be noted that the existing ADU on the property as well as the she shed are both that same relatively new faux wood grain siding as well.
So what we have is a wood grain hardy plank that was installed like about 6 or 8 houses in the historic district that's on that building now. So we really can't tell them to tear it off.
Yeah.
So the
you're
reality
almost
is,
repairing. I guess you can only tell them to put it on where
Where the new
where
construction.
construction is.
Yeah.
I think staff had issue with the mix of the smooth on the front addition and where it's going to meet the existing siding on
Yes.
the west side of the house, as shown.
can we show the west
bottom
elevation?
left.
Yeah, if-
Well, I see it in a small picture there. I mean,
There will be a vertical trim board there because
Yes.
that new structure is higher. We think that'll break it up when everything's repainted. Again, it sits far enough back on that. I don't think that anybody's going to notice the difference. You know, when I stand at the street, granted my eyesight's going, but I can't see if there's wood grain on it or not. Our preference would be wood grain throughout, but we understand, you know, the rules and regulations of the historic district review. So, you know, if we need to have that one single point where it mixes, we're fine with that. The entire sides and front of the addition would be the smooth siding as recommended by the staff.
So basically you're willing to be compliant with issue number 7?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
so-
really not an issue. So,
So not an issue?
all right.
are you, wait, you would have the whole sides be smooth?
Of the addition.
Yeah, and okay, to be clear,
Yeah, I was
if I
going to
may.
make sure we're clear. too.
Okay, if I may, to be clear, the owner would be willing to have the whole front addition be smooth, not the sides of the existing structure.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
to
the
be
addition.
clear.
The main structure, right?
The
And
front
you-
addition,
The
And-
front addition.
right,
yes.
Front of the addition,
but not exactly what staff has recommended, this existing sides, the owner does not want to reside the sides. Yeah,
on the west and on the west elevation, the existing west elevation, you don't want to do that side of the front house.
Well, just to be clear, so on the east elevation, of course, that's a new thing, that'll be smooth.
That will be smooth.
Across the front would be smooth.
Correct.
And our only stance with this was where that corner board is placed, and you're piecing in where windows were, right? Because you're going to have to, you can't just, I wouldn't recommend just piecing in right where the windows were. It was lacing siding back in place, that this portion would be smooth. All of that could remain.
Correct.
Yes, well, that's what I think we heard.
The break would be at that vertical board.
That's right.
So all of the new renovation on the front would
Yeah.
be smooth.
So
and
we
the
are
existing
saying the
house
same
would
thing.
stay.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I think we heard that.
Okay.
And the reality is, commonly we talk about corner boards being a differential between new and old.
Right.
So when you do a new addition to the back of an old building, we like to see that vertical piece stay and the changes from there the other direction.
That's what we're
And that's what you're doing, so, just the illustration shows something different, but I think that's fine in my mind. So
Yeah.
siding's not an issue if y'all work that out and you're gonna agree with staff's recommendations.
And on number 2, I think it was supposed to be on the plans as far as the
Yes.
percentages. I did my own calculations if staff wants those with my rough math. for that with the overall coverage, including the additions. Out of the 7,343 square feet approximately, the new total was 2,548 square feet, or 34.6%. And then of the 58.41 foot line on the front of the house, we are at 32.34. Of the actual house, we're at 55.4%.
So staff, we're talking about pervious, impervious surfaces, correct? And the maximum coverage is 70? I keep hearing the word 50.
55, they get additional 10% for impervious, so they can get up to 65% total impervious.
Total coverage impervious.
We're below 35, including the impervious surfaces.
Also to note on that number 0.5, I will note it is pressure treated wood. I'll note that in the drawings. Yes.
And any question on the window types from staff? They've submitted, I didn't hear any comments on windows, the new windows. What we're using, I didn't see. Let me go to staff report. Are you putting the same windows that's already in the existing house in the new addition?
Similar look.
Window, the types of windows?
Similar look, the Marvin.
Marvin Elevate.
Marvin
Yes.
Elevate series.
Staff has no problems with the windows? Okay.
And I guess the only other item was number 3, but it doesn't really even feel like that's something that,
But they simply requested a clarification, and it is, since we are
Cabinetry.
turning the existing pantry into a powder room, we're going to use those cabinets where that window is now full height for our pantry, which will not be.
does anybody have any other?
Could you pull up the photograph of the house as it currently looks?
Yeah.
I thought you had one. Maybe not.
It's in our, it's in our packet.
Oh, it was in our packet.
Has all the cars up front.
Yeah, the parking, there we go.
There, okay.
I know that's not, we're not discussing that today, and it's not our purview, but,
During Lori's son's deployment, so we actually have several Marines cars during that time.
what did you say?
The parking right now, as you see, it was during a recent deployment this past year, and so we had 2 other Marines cars there.
Do you have a plan for parking?
So the parking's going to remain the same, the exception of the pickup that's on the right of that would not be parking. We don't want to block the front walk of the house. The intent would be to do a straight walk, straight out that, so we would lose that one parking spot. We do have adequate parking to the left of where that pickup is now. That is just kind of overflow currently.
Okay, so you have like 3 designated parking spaces there?
Correct. And it's deep enough, you could, with the smaller car, my BMW, you can fit another car in front of it if you.
Well, like I said, that's not what we're being asked to discuss, but it would be nice if that could be delineated in some way that.
Yes, ma'am, that's the intent, is a walkway to go from the center door of the new construction straight out to the walkway. And everything to one side of the walkway would be the driveway, everything else would be landscaped.
Okay. Well, folks, let's get back on track. We're actually asking for preliminary approval for this project. I haven't heard anything that they wouldn't do that's on the staff's comments. It looked to me like they're enlarging the main east side of the house, doing what we spoke about, so it'd be a good time for a motion.
I'll make a motion for preliminary approval with conditions noted.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further debate? Hearing none. Call for a vote. We'll start down here.
Aye.
I support it.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right. DD. Let's see, who's doing this one? D. All right, so it's, I'll stay on the chair. So we'll have the staff introduce project D, 1203 Congress Street.
All right, so the applicant is requesting final approval for alterations and additions to a single-family residence. This property is in the historic conservation neighborhood. And the application received conceptual approval at the September 2022 HRB meeting. And this is the property's location. It's looking straight on at 1203 Congress Street. This is the building across the street. This is looking east on Congress Street and looking west on Congress Street. And the decision letter for the conceptual approval at the September meeting. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Ashley for her presentation.
We are proposing to renovate this house, yeah. And by just basically sending a massing straight back. And also proposing to remove some previously added additions that we don't believe really added to the true, like, historic, traditional mass itself, so. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. The front room will become, instead of being subdivided, it becomes a great room. Yeah, that's it. Single family residence. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Get staff's view on this project.
All right, so staff acknowledgements. The house is located in the northwest quadrant and is listed as a contributing resource built in 1910. Acknowledgement B, staff supports the removal of the prior addition on the east side of the house. And comment C, per section 1143, quote, if a proposed addition would encroach into the same setback that already had been encroached upon, the addition can be allowed, provided it projects no further into the setback than the existing structure. The dimensions of this new addition are in keeping with the setback encroachments of the historic house. So moving on to the staff conditions, staff condition number 1. Staff believes the applicant has successfully revised the massing of the addition to be more sensitive of the original house. The applicant has recessed the dining room, kitchen, adjacent bedroom, and the closet and bathroom by 4 inches on each side to create a hyphen between the main house and rear bedroom area. The applicant has also created a cross gable at the rear to parallel the front building, as well as extend a shed roof over the screen porch and portion of the master bathroom, which were all recommendations of our previous staff report. Comment number 2, staff recommends the applicant reduce the slope of the gable roof over the hyphen from a 5.5/12 to a 4/12 or 5/12 to lower this roof ridge below the original house's ridgeline. Number 3, the applicant has replaced the single window in the dining room and the single window in the bedroom with sets of paired windows. Staff supports this change. Number 4, staff recommends the applicant replace the 2030 window in bathroom number 1 on the rear with a 2650 window to match the window on this same facade in bedroom number 1. Staff condition number 4, the applicant to confirm that the proposed SDL Marvin Elevate windows will have external grills and interior spacer bars. Number 6, applicant to confirm that the new fiber cement siding will have a smooth finish per section 463A1B. Number 7, applicant to provide a cut sheet for the door at the rear of the house. Number 8, applicant to clarify the material of the base of the addition, which appears to be stucco, and rear porch balusters, railings, columns, and stairs, as well as all window and door trim. And just for a comment on that, we noticed after we wrote the staff report that they did include a note that there is stucco on the base of that here in the detail section drawing. So we just want to see that note throughout all of the drawings as well, including the elevations. And number 9, the applicant is to provide any cut sheet for any and all decorative lighting fixtures for the exterior of the structure. And with that, our recommendation is final approval with conditions noted.
Thank you very much. This time, we'll ask if anyone online has any comments.
No hands raised on Zoom, sir.
No hands raised on Zoom, okay? Any comment from the audience? HBF? Seem to be popular today.
Cassandra, HBF. HBF's Preservation Committee reviewed the project and agrees with staff comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments related to renovation in the northwest quadrant? Hearing none, we'll bring it up to the board for consideration. So, these things are moving along. I don't even remember the last time we talked about this building when I first saw it. And I signed the letter. I was sitting here trying to catch back up exactly what it is we're trying to do here, and I think that it sounded like, from the staff comments, that they followed some of the things that we discussed.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest pieces, I think, back then was there was a shed roof design on the rear. Is this it?
This is the previous submission, so this is the current.
Okay,
Oh,
so-
yeah. See, so yeah, we added that cross gable at the rear instead, so that it was more true
What
to,
we're looking at here is the previous one?
no, this is the proposed.
Okay. So they made the changes, and it sounded like the staff has 9 comments, but most of them look like they've been worked out. Is there any, before we get into long dialogue, is there any staff conditions that the applicant is refuting or deciding they don't want to do?
No,
Okay, so that makes it easy for us to decide here.
Yeah, I think it's exciting that this house is being restored, and I think it seems like an easy, final approval with staff conditions noted.
Okay, well, remember, they're asking for finals. That means everything with Ts crossed and Is dotted. So when they get our approval, and then a letter goes out to me to sign and say they got approval, they still have to have all these pieces. They got to go back.
Right, but they would be definitely, I think with staff conditions, I feel like it doesn't feel like it needs to come back in front of us.
I agree.
Yeah, I support final with staff conditions.
That's what I
I
want to
agree.
hear. If everybody's comfortable with final, I definitely am, so.
Yep.
I'll second that.
I did.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further comments or debates? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. We'll start there again.
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, Maxine, for that motion. All right, then we are on to Mr. Chapman coming back.
Thank you, Mike. Our next application is 803 Prince Street.
All right, so the applicant is requesting preliminary approval for new construction of a single-family residence. This property is in the Historic Preservation Neighborhood, and it received conceptual approval at the July 2022 HRB meeting. This is the project location. This is looking at the lot as it stands right now on the open space across the street. Context photos, and then this is the decision letter from the July 2022 meeting. And with that, we'll turn it over to Bill for the presentation.
Welcome, Bill.
Page up and page down.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can I check to see if the owner's online? Yes. Okay. So if you have any direct questions for the owner, he's online.
Thanks.
All right, we're back for preliminary. We've made a series of changes based on last meeting, and I'll go through those real quick and then we'll talk. First thing we did was we requested to stake the house. It was staked. I hope everybody got to see it. We moved the house back to align with the adjacent neighbor. I'm not sure you weren't correct, but that's where it is and that's where we like it. We reduced the width and the depth of the house. We wanted that gap between the cottage and the new house to remain the way it was as a garden space. The width, the street front width, we reduced by about 18 inches. That gave us more room, a little bit of buffer for what we're trying to do. The rest of it, I'll go through it quickly and just kind of give you the overall concept of the house. We're designing a white-on-white house with tones of gray. We've got a main body, which is 22 by basically 40, which is a standard house. A wraparound porch that is enclosed on the street side and turns into a porch and continues back. Has a little vaulted space in the kitchen, work area, and then goes back to another addition. It's not an addition, the master suite addition, and I'll show it there's the overall plan. The garage, we kept like it was in conceptual. It's kind of a nondescript, low eave, about as small as I could make it without being, for a two-car garage. We removed the whole rear. We had a west side entrance, back door, that went down the property line between this property and the church. We deleted all of that. We're going to use the garden side as the owner's entry. We revised the driveway. It's still a gravel drive. We have, by the way, put a construction lane in there. There's another permit that's working on the cottage. So we put some rocks back there to keep the dirt from flowing back onto the adjacent neighbor. And that will be all regraded and refined as this project comes along. So we did make some changes from conceptual. We did go to a mass. The two-story mass is a different texture, different material. The other ones are the same as we did before, which is the shiplap siding. Some people call it nickel gap, but shiplap siding. Same similar color. We do have a wood platform at the entry door, and then it steps up to the porch, the street porch, which is hard pavers. The inside of this house and the outside porches are the same material on the first level. So that's a slight change from last time. We kept the broad eaves. They're still broad. We did do an exposed rafter tail for the main portion of the building, the two-story and the back wing. I've done a closed soffit on the porch, kitchen area with gutters to try and contain this water and trying to control it with the landscape architect. The little pool remained where it was. We didn't change that at all. We did not revise the landscaping plan yet until we get approval here with the placement, but the concept will be the same. You can see now the little street. Let's go. We did a little knee wall. I'll go to a sketch in a second to show you that out on the property line. If you're out on site, the big hedge that's out there that separates this property from the street is 6 feet from the property line in the right of way. So it's a very deceptive site right now. But you can see there's a picket fence, which is about where the main building was. I assume y'all looked at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that's that. Detail-wise, you can see I did a pretty good many building sections so y'all could understand how these forms work together. This is we do have a lot of shutters. We have shutters on porches for privacy and views. Let me see what else is different from last time. So in this little detail, here we go. You can see that streetscape with the little knee wall. It's basically 18 inches high. And once it's graded, it'll probably be more like 14 inches high once the back grade is put in. So we're doing grays and whites. Light fixtures, I know this is preliminary, but I've used this same light fixture several times. It's a 5-inch by 5-inch by 1-inch cube. So it's an indirect light up, down. That is the nickel gap siding, by the way, in that picture. We're going to use the same siding. I have a model made. I can plug it in if anybody needs to see it while we review it, or I think I can plug it in. And that's kind of a preliminary profile of a rafter tail. And in the model, you'll see I didn't put it everywhere yet, but that's kind of my standard, that's my detail at the moment. And I will let you go back to your comments. We'll
Thank
go
you.
back to questions. Where do you want me to go, Maria?
All right, so the staff acknowledgement, the existing previously relocated non-historic cottage is located towards the rear of the property. A new garage addition is to be added to this cottage. An application for alterations to the cottage received final approval in October 2022, which is the work that Bill was talking about that's currently going on. So moving to the staff conditions. Since some of these, there was a more updated staff report sent out that just reflects some of these comments that just ended up kind of being removed that were no longer kind of pertinent to this project. So staff condition, moving on to number 2, staff supports the removal of the stoop on the west facade of the house. Condition number 3, the applicant has appropriately placed the front setback of this house to align with the setback of the adjacent house at 801 Prince Street. The applicant has extended the stairs and landing outside of the balcony colonnade, and let me get to that rendering really quickly and zoom in. This area here. Staff believes this element now engages with the street better and supports this revision. Renderings show that the stair landing in front of the main door is set slightly below the rest of the porch. Staff recommends the applicant lower the front porch to align with this lower landing to create one level so that there is a small step down from the main door and French doors to the porch itself. Staff comment number 4. The applicant has removed the additional strip of washed granite pavement that extended beyond the garage's north elevation line here. Staff supports this revision. Number 5, let me get to that. Staff does not support the placement of the small powder room window on the first floor here, west facade, and recommends the applicant push the window farther south and away from the corner. Staff would also support removing this window altogether. Number 6, staff believes that the shutter placement appears somewhat arbitrary throughout the building and supports removal of the shutters from the project entirely. Number 7, staff recommends the applicant replace the paired windows on the south facade of the ground floor east room with a set of triple windows. And we offered comment 8, the next comment, for additional recommendations for that east room. Number 8, staff believes the east room appears too much like an addition to the main 2-story structure and recommends the applicant study the fenestration in this east room. Staff believes there is an opportunity to use larger fenestrations similar to the north porch doors on the ground floor east room rather than sets of double or triple gang windows. Staff recommends the applicant study the fenestration to convert the east room into a sunroom with a heavier emphasis on the use of glass. Let's see. Comment number 9, staff believes that a recessed cornice detail as shown in the rendered front elevation around the east room would be an appropriate detail to replicate throughout the building and especially at the second floor roofline. Number 10, staff does not support the 6/1 window configuration and recommends the applicant revise the window patterns. Staff would support a less busy grid pattern. Number 12, staff recommends the applicant remove the smaller window from the bathroom adjacent to the stairs on the second floor. Let me get to that. It's a lot of back and forth. Staff recommends the applicant reconfigure the bathroom of the easternmost bedroom to accommodate a full-size window with sill and head heights that match the adjacent bedroom window. So this window right here is what we were discussing. Number 13, staff supports the use of the Boral Gap siding and believes this siding profile adds a modern aesthetic that differentiates this house from the neighboring historic structures. Applicant to confirm that the siding on both the main house and the garage will have a smooth finish per section 463A1B. Number 14, staff supports the proposed colors and materials for the house. Applicant to confirm that the proposed Marvin signature windows will either be true divided light windows or be simulated divided light windows with exterior grills and interior spacer bars. Number 15, the applicant to show setbacks on all 4 sides of the property in future submissions to demonstrate that the pool and adjacent pavement does not encroach beyond the side setback. And number 16, applicant to confirm of the existing 6-inch southern magnolia and 10-inch sugarberry to be removed to construct the garage. The 17-inch elm and 17-inch red cedar are proposed to be removed from the front of the property, which are specimen trees. Applicant to note that a certified arborist report is required for any specimen or landmark trees proposed to be removed. And we have additional recommendations beyond preliminary approval, but our staff recommendation is preliminary approval with conditions noted.
Thank you. Is there any public comment.
No virtual comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Cassandra, Historic Beaufort Foundation. The Preservation Committee reviewed the project and agreed with staff comments. The committee also noted some concern that the eaves extended out rather far, potentially to stay in line with the extension from the chimney, if not a design choice. If it is to extend with the chimney, they suggested that the chimney could stand alone without an eave around it, just to reduce the extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment and open for board discussion. Anybody want to start us out?
Well, I would just say I'm impressed with the design. It's a more contemporary, hip-proof design that seems to have been softened somewhat from the last presentation. I'm excited to hear from fellow board members of what they think about some of the fenestration of the newer materials. But it looked like in the general conversation, windows always come up as a question on placement by concern from staff. And so I think the best thing would be to find out the applicant what the issues with the windows. I think there's 2 points. One, location and size. 2, divided light, true divided light are the questions that came up. Maybe we get Bill to ask the architect, Bill Chambers, to tell us what he thinks about the staff's comments on windows. Window placement. Let's talk about window placement.
Okay, so as far as the window pattern goes, we're okay downsizing the grills to 2/2. That would be what we would recommend if the 6/1 is not appropriate to the board. The little window in the powder room, it was going to kind of be a special window anyway. So we could go either way on that, to be honest.
What do you mean a special?
We could, I was hoping they could find a little window to put in that powder room as kind of a, like from Spain or from somewhere. So we don't have that. So it's not an important, it was kind of a personal detail that I like to add in those small rooms. So it would ended up not being a square casement. It'd have been a little stained glass or something weird. Okay. So we're okay with that window not being there if that's the case. The placement, the 3 on the street, the 3 windows on the street side, you can't talk me out of windows, so, and the owners are okay adding 3.
All right.
Can we see that on that?
I'm okay with the glass box, but, so the 3 on that room would, I
Can you
think.
pull that, Bill, can you pull that? I'd like to
Yeah.
see it when we're talking about it.
Okay, sorry.
On the right side, that porch form. Yeah. Yep, right there.
So was that the comment?
Those 2 right there, they're recommending 3,
To make it more of the sunroom.
Right.
which kind of goes edge to edge.
Right.
All right?
So I'm not opposed to the 6/1, but I think especially in this image, you can see maybe matching the doors would make a little more sense, but.
In the 2/2 instead of 2/1, whatever we do, if I'm going to change it, it's going to be a rectilinear grill, and they are SDLs. They're not true TDLs. So 2/2 that's what we would choose if we're going to change it.
I think that would go well with some of those smaller bathroom windows as well, that are now 2/1, which.
Right. As far as let's go to this elevation. Let me see if I can navigate to it. Here we go. So as far as this elevation goes, those windows are kind of configured around a plan, okay? So they're centered, like this pair in the middle is centered in a bedroom. These are over in the bathrooms. This window right here, which is the easternmost window that was brought up, we already have a window in that bathroom, a large one on the east side. So that's just adding more light. I think if we went and eliminated those shutters, the confusion would be less. And the staff might think that's a good solution with where they are.
They
That's my
suggested-
comment.
Is there any objection to eliminating the shutters?
No, there is not. So what we were going to propose is hurricane-rated shutters and DP-rated windows. So if we eliminate the shutters, now, when I say eliminate the shutters, that's not everywhere.
Right.
We will go with hurricane windows and eliminate the shutters. On the windows, the single windows. The doors, we want to keep those shutters on the south side, on the street.
I like those.
Those stay. But the other ones, you know, with this grouping of 3s and 2s, we're okay with getting rid of shutters.
What about the sides?
Size.
The sides, the side elevations, would you keep or remove those
No,
shutters?
I would remove those also.
Okay. So really just
So
the
just,
front?
there would be no windows that have shutters, only doors.
Okay.
Does that follow with your recommendation? Okay.
And one of the recommendations was to bring this floor, well, actually the opposite, bring this level down to that platform level. So we like the change of material at the entrance, and there's also a functional reason to do that because there's a well right there. But we want the doors on the front and rear of that room flush, inside and out. No steps at all. There'll be a slight pitch, but it'll be negligible. So we don't want to drop that porch level on the south side of the house.
And you don't want to raise it so that it's all one level?
We can discuss that as a team with the owners and see what their thought is on that. But they like stepping up into a front door. They like that 6-inch step into that front door. That's one of the things that was in the program to begin with. So now we have a 6-inch step getting up onto the porch also. And it defines the entryway away from the porch. I mean, that was the whole reason for putting the entry on the side and not in the middle.
So it appears a side-loaded front entry at a different elevation than the 3-bay porch, right?
Correct.
All right,
By this far.
So you
6
step up, you can either step up from that landing at the front door.
Yes.
Onto the porch, but it's just one step down. Right?
It's not even a full step, you know, it's 4 to 6 inches is what it'll be.
So, I mean, my only personal thought was how many times I'd fall over it, but once I know the house, I wouldn't do that, I guess.
And the north porch is the same way. It's flush to the doors with a slight pitch.
And that material at that opening is different than the porch deck, and that's a concrete slab building.
Yes, and that porch, that front porch is a concrete slab. The second porch is timber, heavy timber framing with decking.
Okay.
And then the lower porch stoop, you know, the entrance, is decking on timber with a wall around it. It's not it's not filled.
But it's out in the weather, it's a wooden deck in the weather on that entry, on that landing?
It's out in the weather, and we're proposing a wooden deck there, yes, not plastic wood.
Talking about the south facade porch.
Yes, that, only at the entry door, that section of it. And again, there's a reason for that, because there's a wellhead there.
There's
And we'd like to preserve that wellhead.
a wellhead. Okay.
It comes out and then turns, you know, comes out the ground about that far and then hits a bladder tank. You might have saw it when you looked. It's kind of in the bushes over there. We'd like to keep that well, and this gives us the opportunity to have a removable deck to access that.
I got you. Now you hit the right words. You need to be able to remove it so you can access the infrastructure beneath it.
Yeah, the bladder tank doesn't have to be there. It'll be around somewhere else, but the wellhead
Piping
has
and
to
all that
stay.
stuff. I got you, okay.
I didn't want to remove it. We didn't want to remove that wellhead. Didn't get
Well,
another.
I want to go, I don't want to take up all the time on the board, but I'm still not clear on the windows. You know, at the end of all this, did we make a motion related to staff conditions, but we need to eliminate the ones that
Yes.
you're going to hold firm on and the ones that you agree to. So I got a little lost there and we got on this.
Okay, so you want to go through each item?
Well, that's kind of think where we should do
Okay.
on the
Is it
related
on
to
here?
windows.
Is your
Or
staff?
if you want to start at the beginning and say okay or no, then we'll know.
I would say, until we got to 5, it seemed like it was meeting, it was all in agree. I take that back. we already showed the stair landing. Well, we just talked about the stair landing in the front
Number
of the
three,
main
the last-
door on number 3.
That's the last sentence in number 3, though,
Yeah,
so.
last sentence in number 3.
That one seems a
Now,
little odd to me, but if it's that on purpose and they really want it, okay.
So that would be a no in this.
So that would be an exception to the.
So we're on 3?
3. The renderings show that the stair landing,
So,
Yes.
so we would be not in agreement with staff on number 3 because you don't want to lower the porch, is what we're saying.
We do not want to lower the porch. We want a flush porch.
And then I think
Yeah.
number,
Basically, the door is recessed into, so it's flush, because the door has its sill like this.
4 was not an issue.
Okay?
right, I think 5 is next.
yeah, that's our next question.
All right, so you want to go to that drawing, or again?
So, just so everybody knows, this is the small window in the powder on the left or west elevation.
I know, it's such a pain.
I could go either way on that one.
I'd say put a round window in there and call it a day.
I'm never,
When you take that little shutter off of it too, it kind of slightly disappears. Now, it can move to the south
Little.
a little bit, because it's underneath a stair, but it can move over.
I'd like that.
You
You're
say,
saying,
move
I
it?
like the elimination of it.
you do?
So you like,
I think it keeps, the thing that I would say, just, I feel like this really has kind of something that has not been done very much, particularly in this area. It really has such a modern adaptation that clearly delineates it from a historic home, considering it's surrounded by so much historic stuff. And I think that little bit of quirkiness takes away from the modern beauty that you created.
Thank you. So I think we could probably center that window, and I'll check on the one above. Being so small, I don't think you'll ever make that connection, to be honest with you. But so if we want to keep the window, I think it could move a little bit to the south, and then we'll submit the window. And then we can, at final, then you can reject it at final if it's not any
there
good.
you go.
Okay?
Okay. Number 6, staff believes that the shutter placement appears somewhat arbitrary, and I guess you're good removing most of the shutters except at the front
Yeah, we
doors.
talked about that as a team, and
So
that's a non-issue.
Except for the front doors.
Except for the front doors and not the front door.
No, but the front
The
doors along
4-foot
the
pair
front-
doors, up and down.
Facade, upper and lower.
So that's the only shutters you're proposing at preliminary, or if you.
Correct.
Would be those,
Well, let me rephrase your statement. That's what we're going to propose for final when we resubmit. Preliminary, we got them everywhere.
Yeah.
But for final, we're going to come back with just those, if that's what we all agree to.
Yep.
so you're not agreeing with number 6, but we'll know more when you come back to final.
Hold on. Let me go to 6.
mostly we agree with staff on 6.
Yeah, except for allowing
Yes.
the front French doors to have
Definitely.
the shutters.
Okay, so we can agree with that comment then. Yeah, is the staff okay with the doors? Yeah. Okay.
Number 7, the applicant said they like more windows.
Now, let's go to 8 after that one, because that's where it comes up on 8.
You want to explain 8 to us?
Okay, so 8, we're agreeing on 7. It looks, actually, I've already drawn it, it looks pretty good. 8, the 2 windows on let me go to the side, that facade is hard to, these 2 windows right here. This is where the steel window system starts. Those are the 2 windows in that room. So those are the 2 that staff is recommending that turn into the steel windows all the way across. There's a reason for those on the interior of the house, the way they use that room. So we kind of like to keep those as windows on that part. It's a different ceiling height than the main house, than the main room. That one has a 9-foot ceiling. The main house has a 11-foot ceiling. So you kind of go into the smaller space.
Would you want to do 3 windows on each of those 3 walls?
I can talk to the owners about 3 on that side. They've got tables set up to be in certain places there. So, yeah, we can discuss that and propose something back.
Well, that'd be 7 and 8 combined, I think, what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And you're not in support of 7 and 8 changing the windows, what I'm hearing.
I actually disagree on number 8 with staff. I could take it or leave it.
I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get a motion out of this, though. We need to.
Well, I think the motion out of this one could be, it's just, I don't need to suggest motions, but
Go for it, Bill.
we can do it. Let me put it, let's leave it as it's drawn on the north side. That's how we're going to want to present it for final, and change and add the window on the south side.
So that would be not in keeping with staff comment number 8.
It's kind of keeping with it to a
Show
point.
me where you'd add it on
Yeah,
the
kinda.
south side.
So the south side,
That'd be number 7.
On the front,
On the front.
moving.
Make sure that's right. That's number 7, right?
right
I
there.
So those 2 windows right there would turn into a 3. 2 over 2, 3. Pair, not a pair, 3, a triple. And on this elevation, can you see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
That stays like it is.
And what is on the east side?
East side is a triple.
So it'd be triple,
Oh.
triple, double.
Gotcha,
There's the triple,
gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay?
That eliminates number 7, is what it goes down to. Well, the 3 windows, the triples are on number 7, right? That's your comment?
Yep, he's agreeing with number 7.
I agree with 7.
Yeah, so I'm saying eliminates number 7 as a concern for him.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, right. All right. Now, I'm not, I'll let the staff clarify 9, because I wasn't quite clear what some of it meant.
Okay?
Basically, I'm getting your mouse. You've got a recessed kind of cornice detail, which I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong elevation. It's actually right through here.
Yes, that we got
That we
that
really
band.
like that because it's kind of an interpretation of a detail. What we wondered about was whether a similar detail could happen here. Because right now, the cladding material, the siding or the stucco, whatever, goes up and just terminates into the rafters. And whether or not there could be something that integrates with those rafters at that level.
Gotcha. All right.
It's just stucco now. So do you want to comment on that, Bill?
Yep, I do. If I can find the drawing so we're all clear. All right, right here. I'll use this one as the reference point. So on the upper level of the house, we have a detail right here at the porch, which is a cornice detail. Then we have the ceiling, and then you can see right here the beginnings of a detail. So we can develop that to be more concise with the porch itself at final. Does that make sense? It can be a similar detail. The porch, that lower porch where you saw it, is more of this, almost, it's not that big, but it's close to that dimension. You can see how I have a curved piece of trim right here, and the rest of this detail's not completed. So yes, and and then when it rounds the corner, I'll do another one. This wall actually goes up higher, right here, because there's no porch. And that's where we would want to block between the rafters and then create the cornice. So we're okay, we're good with that detail. But you're going to see up, you're going to see up pretty high with these rafter
Not
tails.
building pigeon pockets up there, are you?
What's a pigeon pocket? Some holes?
No, it's that when you create a ledge between the rafter tails, it makes suitable.
No,
nesting for
no,
pigeons.
no, and we don't want to do that for sure. Usually I just put this, usually when I do the expose, I don't think I have I might have a detail of that, hold on. Already drawn. Let me look. Here we go. That's usually the way I will detail that, where you've got, that looks like one piece of wood, which you obviously can't. I'm looking right here. So that's basically between the rafters and then a continuous piece. So there's no ledge like you're asking. So that detail right there can also be the upper story.
I think the question was really the stucco finish terminates at the bottom of that freeze border.
Correct.
Stop.
Right? We'll stop it like right there.
Or appear to stop there.
It'll appear to stop there, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right.
That answers number 9.
Yep,
So we're okay with number 9.
We're okay with number
correct.
9.
And,
I think we've said we're okay with number 10 too, right?
Yep.
yeah,
Pattern, he's going to change the pattern. so.
Right.
Okay, 11.
We never talked about that one.
What,
but-
that one?
11 was marked out.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to talk about it real quick so we all understand. So we've got probably three total units. And what we're going to come back with, we've got some engineering going on for the HVAC. We'd like all the HVAC units to be behind the cottage, not anywhere near this house. That's a long lead and it's a pump. So we got to do some logistics on that. There is a pool equipment also. So the way I've drawn it, I put 2 units behind the kitchen and then 1 unit behind the bedroom. The bedroom unit's a pool equipment. That's definitely going to go behind the cottage, for sure. So the rest of it, if we can move it all, that'd be great. And just get it away from this building. That's our goal.
And it won't disturb the dead.
So that'll, won't what?
Disturb the dead.
I hope not. The new units are actually very quiet, as you know. And they're really quiet. I mean, really quiet. They're variable speeds, so they barely make any noise. Okay.
Okay, I think number 12 is the last one where we might have something to talk about.
So eliminating the shutters on that will probably take a lot of the confusion out. To redesign the interior of the house to accommodate all full-size windows, we'd rather not if we don't have to.
Okay. Right.
All right. Siding's fine.
That-
We all agreed on that. That's it, right?
I believe so.
As far as the trees go, we do have an arborist. He just hadn't been out there. So as soon as we get him out there, we can respond back to these sugarberry trees, which are labeled as elms.
All right.
All right.
Well, I think you've come a long way with this one.
Yeah, nice work.
Could you pull up the rendering that shows the trees? Is there one?
I'm going to plug my computer in and see. I don't think they have that one. Hold on. There's 2 renderings on the front page.
Either at like the very end.
I can try plugging in and see what happens. Going?
Yeah, I think that's all we had. All right, go back up. I think that's all we had in terms of renderings. I
You
don't think we
want-
had anything with trees in them.
You want me to try and plug in? See that rendering? You want to?
I'm good, but
No, I'm fine. I found it.
Oh, you found, okay. I just don't want to crash their computer, that's all. I don't think it will.
any other comments or issues? Questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Great.
Make a motion to accept for preliminary approval the staff's conditions noted, except for number 3, 5, 8, and 12.
Everybody clear? Any other discussion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Let's vote. Maxine?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Bill. All right, next up is 417 Newcastle Street.
We still have a roof problem.
So the applicant is requesting preliminary approval for alterations to a single-family residence. This property is located within the Beaufort Preservation Neighborhood, and this is the first application received for this project. And this is the property location. This is a picture of the house itself. This is looking across Newcastle Street. This is looking south on Newcastle, and then north on Newcastle. And maybe it might be good to just get into the first staff acknowledgement that we had. So while the address is 417 Newcastle Street, staff believes this structure is listed as 415 Newcastle Street on the list of contributing resources, and it is listed as a one-story frame dwelling built circa 1880. The house also appears in the 1899, 1905, 1924, and 1958 Sanborn maps, and is labeled in the 1924 and 1958 maps as 413 Newcastle. The houses on either side appear to be newer construction. In the 1997 Historic Site Survey lists this building as 415 and 419, but other images label it as 413. So with all that confusion, we're viewing it as the structure that is noted on the list of contributing resources, the one built in 1880. And the staff also assumes this addition to be built after 2003, since it does not appear to be submitted in the 2003, or appear in the submitted 2003 plat. So with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you. Welcome, Nate.
Jump into page down
How you
here.
doing? So this is for Laura Baker. I don't think she's online or anything. She's unavailable. She had discussed putting this addition onto her kitchen sitting room a couple of years ago. I think Bill Chambers actually had something turned in before, but we revisited it. And basically, we're just trying to extend her living area in this house. The main historic structure, she doesn't use it very much. She lives off to the side in the addition that was done 6 or 8 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. We'll probably have more questions. Go to the staff report, please.
Okay, so per section 461E, attached garages, detached garages, and other accessory structures shall be subordinate in height, footprint, and proportion to the primary structure on the site, and shall be compatible with the principal structure in terms of roof form, materials, and color. And number 2, item 9 of the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation of Historic Buildings states that new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. So while staff appreciates the applicant's attention to replicating the massing, roof forms, and height, staff has concerns that this addition detracts from the true primary entrance of the house and resembles an entirely separate structure rather than an ancillary addition of the main house. Staff recommends the applicant restudy the addition so that the design complements rather than mirrors the original structure. To mediate this concern, staff recommends the applicant study any of the options listed below. So 2A would be to convert the proposed porch here to a stoop with an awning over the door only. That would be one option to consider. B, if a porch is desired on the west facade, staff recommends the revisions below to make the addition more subordinate to the main structure. So BI would be extend the porch and roof, and porch roof to engage with the side of the original structure of at the front room, possibly consider changing the roof to a shed roof over the porch rather than for it to be hipped. B, 2, retain the existing window is proposed to be removed. Retain that window on the current west elevation of the former addition to allow light into the existing kitchen and breakfast area. B3, alter extent or location of front porch stair to make it less prominent, such as extending stair across entirety of the porch or relocating the stair to the side or to the end. Move on to the next page. Extend the fence across the front addition and then add a gate so that the entrance to the addition doesn't have a direct connection to the street. And then reduce the addition's roof pitch. So as we look into these, just kind of summarizing, as I look at this structure, this addition is structured right now, it looks like a mini version of the house next to it. So we're trying to find ways to mitigate that concern. And so that's where those comments kind of came from. Number 3, applicant to confirm that the new addition does not exceed the 70% maximum lot coverage for a T4N property per section 241A3. Number 4, applicant to call out the materials of every element and drawing submitted for final review. So that's kind of a future submittal for the applicant to consider. So applicant to note that faux wood grain siding is not permitted, and any new siding must have a smooth finish if it is cementitious. Staff believes that cementitious siding with a smooth finish on the addition would provide a visually different appearance than the wood siding on the original structure and may help in establishing the addition as a separate element built later than the main house. Number 5, staff supports the use of the horizontal hogspin siding between the addition's brick piers as opposed to the vertical siding as seen on the main house. Staff notes that the applicant has drawn the existing hogspin siding as horizontal elevation drawings, and applicant to clarify if they are proposing to replace the existing vertical siding with horizontal siding. Number 6, staff does not support the pork chop soffit detail on the addition and recommends that the applicant slope the soffit to match the eaves. Number 7, for final submission, applicant to submit detailed drawings, including drawings showing a projecting sill for all relocated windows. For final submission, so number 8, for final submission, applicant to provide a cut sheet for the new door, light fixtures, and metal roof, and applicant to confirm that all other elements such as railings, columns, trim, etc. will be wood. And number 9, applicant to note that per section 256H, fences shall not exceed 4 feet in height on a front setback, and applicant to reduce the height of the brick piers and privacy fence from 5 feet to 4 feet. Given the concerns that we have with the way the addition currently is structured, staff does recommend deferral with these conditions so the applicant can come back and present something we feel is more appropriate.
Thank you. It's now time for public comment.
No virtual comment, Mr. Chair.
Cassandra, Historic Beaufort Foundation. Our Preservation Committee understands that the west elevation of the proposed cottage design is almost identical to the original building. So as not to confuse between the older structure and the new addition, they suggest that the door be swapped with the left window and the stairs to the porch be moved either to the left edge of the west elevation or moved to the north side of the porch, in addition to staff's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, we will close public comment and open for board discussion.
Well, staff, good job. I think this is the first time I've had one that I support you probably wholeheartedly. Very rare. Maybe it's time to stop, huh? And I give the reason, I think I support the whole concept of the mirroring, and I understand how it could get there. I truly understand how any design element done by an architect or designer in Beaufort, trying to follow our code and trying to be sensitive to the character and scale, because the scale, they kind of nailed it. the massing is, I think, some of the problem on the negative, positive on the window placement. And even HBF kind of gave us some solutions to that, whether the interior works or not, that's irrelevant. But just simply by moving a door location to the left and eliminating it as a primary entrance changes, in a subtle way, it changes the way it feels. And I think staff also commented on the porch steps moving, and maybe that's the answer, moving a door and steps. And then even there's things that you can do like roof materials and siding materials and things that make it appear as an addition. And this building, I'm familiar with the original structure. It's gone through several renovations. When Ms. Baker bought the house, it had a major renovation done to it, the rear and the left side. Up to that point, it was a part of the hotel through the Craven Street Inn process, and I think it was divided up into 2 or 3 bedrooms, and there's what today would be, we'd call a short-term rental, but at that time it was actually hotel rooms. So the good idea, but how did it get there? And staff has recommended deferral, and I'm not going to decide how that helps, because if we denied it, then they would still come back. If we defer it, they still come back. If we gave them conceptual, they're in the right zone, but how does it help them? So what is the right answer?
So that comment 2A and B, I think, is the difference. I disagree with staff that convert the proposed porch to a stoop with an awning. So maybe that is more major and why they might recommend deferral. I would go with B, just some of these small tweaks. I think they're pretty close, actually. So I would recommend approval with all those minor comments. I think they're almost there.
So you'd okay with the rest of the staff's comments on it?
Yes.
Just that one?
Yeah. I mean, it's a 3-bay, not a 5-bay. It's pushed back. It's not up at the sidewalk. It is lower slightly in ridge height. And then, yes, all those other minor little changes, I think, will really make it strong.
Are you okay with the door location?
I think actually moving the door to the left bay might make more sense, and maybe the steps are right there, and then you have more usable porch, and it's not on center, so it's...
Yeah.
I like that
I kind of feel
idea.
strongly about that.
You mean in support of moving the door over?
Yeah, I
Me
do.
too.
Yeah.
For some reason, it just feels almost like the mother with the daughter behind her,
Yeah.
Like it just feels like house and mini house.
It looks like a hotel to me, the way it's set up, like something you'd see at the Beaufort Inn or,
So one of the things,
Great house, no matter how we look at it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful house, so.
one of the things we talked about on Friday with the Historic Foundation was maybe turning this into 2-bay right here, right? Eliminating that third one, putting a shed roof over that section and flipping the door and the window here. So door and window swap,
Right.
shed roof, 2-bay, so she can still have a place to put a chair or whatever there, because she does want to sit on that.
Which actually, it seems like if you swap, you'd have more room for sitting
Yeah.
than having a center entrance.
Yeah.
Well, if I go to a 2-bay, it's either one or the other.
He's
See, I'm saying, we're saying eliminate this third
Oh, I
bay there, keep we'll recenter that window in there somewhere.
I see what you're
But we just do a 2-bay porch instead of a 3-bay porch. So it would be more of a stoop, I think was one of the comments. And use a shed roof over the top of that. One of the things we're trying to do here is these windows and the door are on the existing addition right now to be reused.
Oh, you mean like where the current kitchen is, those windows to be reused?
Correct, so, oops. Let me zoom in.
One of the staff suggestions is just to keep both of those, too.
So these windows, this door on the side is a side stoop right now without any porch over it. We're going to reuse that door. It's a nice wood door. We're going to reuse that. And then the windows, we're basically just relocating the windows. The reason for removing this window is because that's the dining area that she wants a piece of artwork there, and we're trying to create some more spaces for walls. But like I said, I think one of the solutions on that front porch part is 1-bay, 2-bay, We can flip-flop the door either side, whatever you all suggest. It won't affect the livability of her room. Eliminate the third bay and just have that window as a connection between the 2 points. Now, one of the other things, this building's so small, we're trying to tie into that existing roof line in the back here that you see there, which is what created our ridge where it is. I think we've got where's the next? There's some side elevations here in the package, I believe. Does that make sense?
It does to me.
So if you did the porch and you say eliminate the bay, basically you're saying 3 columns instead of 4,
Correct?
but you're still doing 2 windows and 1 door.
Right.
Yes. But we can move this window, we could, we're trying to create that wall where she's like I said, where her.
Well, the windows would stay where they are, wouldn't they?
I think the windows would stay where they are, yes.
Basically, you'd flip the door.
Correct. Flip
And
the
you're talking about
door
putting
and
a
the
shed
window.
roof over the entire
Just these
windows.
two, yes.
They just changed from a hip to a shed. I mean, and would you keep the rafter tails? I think it'd be appropriate on a shed roof.
I think it would look better with the rafter tails with the original.
Yeah, I mean, on a shed roof, it'd be more appropriate. Rafter tails are overused because the only reason they have rafter tails is because they didn't finish the houses back in the day.
Right.
They didn't wrap the soffits, and now we have rafter tails.
And that's how the house is right now. It has rafter tails on the porch and the rest of it is a closed soffit.
Yeah, how about the material? I don't know what roofing material's on the main house now, but it has to be a newer roof. I think
It's a metal roof. We were going to match all the materials exactly as is.
Is that a hand crimp or snap lock? See, that building had a major restoration on it.
Correct. That roof is relatively new, I think.
That looks like, that's that snap lock it looked like with a ridge cap. Yeah, maybe. It's hard to tell in the picture, but you can see the profiles of the materials, the trim outs. It's hard to tell from here, but I mean, I guess the question is, what is the roof material on the addition? Is it going to match? Because you're not going to match.
Well, this addition here, we were planning on using all those same materials again, which are the same materials that are on the main house, and I don't know what was replaced when exactly.
Well, I'm just saying the age of that, even at 5 years old, and you go to the same color on the new addition, it's not going to match. So, I mean, I'm just saying, are you using the same, do you propose using the same exact process, mechanical seamed roof?
Yes.
On the addition in the same profile?
Yes, because I think we're going to have a hard time tying all the roof together, especially in the back if we don't.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's just a matter of how much you take off and where you stop, and then what you put back. I mean, there's additions, a lot of additions down have asphalt shingle roofs on the addition, metal on the other. I think we'd probably lean more to metal in that location, in that building. But there's a lot of debate up here about mechanical seamed, hand crimp, those things.
Well, like I said, I think it goes back to, there's a shared, the rear of this house, this entire shed here, match existing roof, it's going to have to match. I mean, it's the same roof plane. There's no way to break or change those materials in the rear of the house.
No, but you may have to, well, you live with 2 colors or you paint all the roofs. I mean, at the end of the day.
I understand.
Either you're going to do, there'll be a patina change in it and it's going to be stand out from the front, but that's not a problem. That's only owner's concern. I mean, if it's green, it's green, right?
Right.
It'll get,
I mean, I think that's the only solution is to try to match it as close to what.
I think I'd support matching the roof.
Yeah.
Can you show us the north facade of your proposal?
I think it went too far. Is that the one?
What's the square footage, excuse me,
Of the addition? We're adding 350 feet of heated space.
okay, and that combined with the square footage of the most recent addition would be, you know, what the as it exists now, what is the new?
I don't have that in front of me right now. As far as the mask or the size of the addition is the same as what was preliminarily approved a number of years ago. We didn't change the footprint of what we're trying to do, so hopefully that's still within.
I don't think there's any issues, as long as your lot coverage is good.
And I think we're okay on that.
Yeah, it sounds like this, really, it's how we define the porch. I'm not hearing a lot of pushback about whether it's a shed or a gable porch or.
Well, I like the shed idea, and I think a two-bay solves a lot of the other problems of making the porch look totally different. And we don't affect the way that she wants to live on the inside at that point.
I think that that's the solution.
Yeah.
Like, particularly, if it solves the problems from it doesn't affect the inside. I think just changing that not to look like mini-me.
Right.
That is going to become the main entrance on this house,
Correct, she does not use her front door, she uses that.
That is the main entrance.
It doesn't prevent the next person who lives in the house
Right.
from not using it as their main. I mean, I have been in this house and I love the front entrance. I mean, I realize she won't use it, but it's really so much that the main house is just a living room with a bedroom. And I get the fact that it won't be but I don't think the next person who lives in the house could live in it differently.
Well, I think there's reason the fence stops, and that's why I was asking that question. The fence stopped short of going across, and staff gave that as one solution, right? To extend the fence line, but the problem is you park right there in front of
Correct,
the new
we
porch.
can't do that, right.
And you get out, you have to have a way to get your car in and walk to that new,
Yeah.
which is really the primary entrance.
Yeah.
Right, so.
But it will be
But a
lower.
lot of people use a back door as a primary entrance anyway, so I don't see that. But I do think since it's, because it's a front, you can't make it a screen porch. So, I think just making it different slightly seems like not such a big.
Can I ask if, and I haven't specifically spoken with this, she's been in and out of town, but if we kept the door and the window where they are, where are we back here? We'll go to the two bay, correct? But if we kept the door here, going to a future user of the room, it would make a whole lot more sense to me to have the door here as opposed to flip-flopping those two. And I don't know if that's going to matter or not when we go to two bay. We've already said we'll go to two bay right here, right? We're eliminating that third. We put the shed over it. Is it okay to still keep that door and window?
What the fenestration of the railings and the staircase be?
Probably just like it is. If we kept the door there.
So all you're really changing is the shed roof at that point.
And two bay instead of three bay.
And drop a column. Well, you can't do that because.
I mean, I just bring that up as a point. You talk about future livability, putting that door way on over makes that room a little bit awkward. It's not going to matter for her, but
Inside, I actually thought it had its benefits to not have a door as you walk right in the middle of the room. I mean, I
Yeah,
looked at
when you look at that
It's off
room.
to the- If it's off to the left.
And like I said, I haven't
you
discussed
open
that
up
with her,
The
but-
entire room versus having.
that's fine.
I agree with you, Michelle. I like the door being to the far left.
Okay.
Looking at the interior of that room, it makes sense.
Would that, and I know the inside of the house shouldn't matter to us from a, livability, but would that solve staff scenario? Yeah, I actually think future would be better to have it to the left.
Okay.
Problem with the two bay, we could even consider, and we have, once again, she haven't been able to discuss this with her, but we could consider having these stairs instead of coming towards the street, coming off this direction now, into that courtyard more.
Well, you
which might
can't,
help us too.
if you do it too big, you're gonna have a center column right in front of your door. You can't
Yeah.
do that.
No.
No, I have a door here.
Oh, if you move the door, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
if I put a door here, window here,
Yeah.
and my stairs coming down off the side there towards the main original house,
Totally agree if you're moving the door.
and then we're allowed to, then we keep our pickets running across the whole front. But one of the other comments from historical review was to remove the pickets entirely, which we could, by playing with the grade, we could get rid of
Yeah.
the rail entirely.
Not a bad idea.
Which would make it even more inviting.
More,
potentially.
right.
I
And
think
I
you're
think
asking-
that's probably a good idea too. We're going to have to play with the grade because we're going to be right there at the 30 inches, but
Less private, though.
less private. And that's the reason for that wall area in the front too, just because it's all out of town traffic on our street.
especially if she's going to be sitting out there.
I don't know how I feel about moving the steps over to come out on
To the courtyard?
the historic house side.
That was just one of the comments from,
I was thinking it'd be the other side.
Yeah.
And then it's close to the door and it's just circulation. You go right in the door and you can keep a couple chairs on the other
Right.
bay.
the problem with the other side is the parking situation, again, that we're going to run into, we're going to lose another parking spot if we go that direction. Which she pulls
Can you
the
show
car.
that site plan view? Because that's important to note that that you do pull up in part of front of that building. I think I saw it on there somewhere.
There's
Yeah.
probably a better one here in this section. We kind of have a T-shaped parking situation going on here where this might even come closer to the house once we're finished, but parking, the main parking spot is here.
Well, it could still stay as it is if you move the door to the left and make it into a two-bay.
I'm sorry?
Stairs could stay where they are.
The stairs could stay right there too. Just bringing that up as one of the comments that they made on Friday, or one of the suggestions they made at Friday, I should say.
How can we make a motion on this?
Well, I mean, there's only two items that were contention, but it's a preliminary, and the items are really the porch.
Yeah.
And so it'd be approved with staff's recommendations related to porch design. It has to get past final to get approved, so.
Yeah.
I'm good with all the staff suggestions, but it sounds like you don't want to do all of them, but I'm good with the ones you've talked about. Shed roof, two bay. I think that'll be just enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's preliminary, so you got a chance to bite at it again.
No problem.
So we could do
There was a
preliminary
comment on a
with
pork
staff
chop. I don't know
conditions.
where the pork chop is.
It shows on that drawing that the old house has that,
It does have that.
and you're saying not mimic it, is what staff saying.
The one on the, yeah,
Okay.
the one on the left doesn't have it either. The existing to the
So
left.
just so I don't miss that one, because this is okay, right? On this, everybody's good with that?
Looks like this is the only one.
Right there.
Oh, well, that's a low pitch, flat gable return called out. I mean, it might have,
Can't extend the
it's
fence,
just
and
tight.
that was, under.
Yeah.
Would you-
We could exclude that one.
That's what we want, right?
You do it. I'm trying, but
All right, I'll make a motion that we support.
Just so I'm clear, so do we want this return, or do we want to make that into a,
Look, it's a staff recommendation. When we make a motion that said, and I'm going to speak loosely here, when we make a motion that it's preliminary and you come back with it, it tells us right then that you didn't agree, and we got to make a chance at the next vote whether to support it.
well, I don't think anybody's going to argue with it, that one
But
either
if we,
way.
you might get it biased.
Okay.
And the reality is if we
Doesn't
vote
care,
for
though.
final, and, I mean, he's not going to lose sleep over it.
Oh, and Laura's not going to lose sleep over it, so
Right.
if everybody makes them happy, it's one less thing to have a problem with next
Sometimes it
time.
ain't worth fighting over.
No pork chop,
No pork chop.
no
got it.
return.
All right,
No
so
return.
where was
Thank
that
you for
at?
the answer.
Where'd you see that one at? Number, no, what number?
that was the pork chop was
Six.
number 2A, right?
No, number 6.
For the gable return, not pork chop.
Yeah, number
Yeah,
6.
you're right, pork
No
chop.
gable return.
All right, does anybody mind if I make a motion?
I do not.
All right, I make a motion, we support this project for preliminary approval with staff's conditions noted, except number 2, 4, number 4, and number 6. And ask the applicant to return for final with a redesigned porch covering and door placement.
Thank you.
So I think we do agree with staff on 6, at least I do. Does not support the pork chop.
Oh, he's agreed to do that. that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You didn't talk about the extended fence.
Oh, that is, yeah, I did, number 4. It's number 2. All right, I'll make the motion again. For clarity, the motion is accept this project for preliminary approval with staff's conditions noted, except number
2B.
2, 4, which is the extending the fence across the front of the property.
2,
2IV.
2B4.
2B4.
2B4, yeah.
And if you don't mind, we don't agree with 2A. Correct?
Right.
At least I don't.
Correct.
And, and 2A. All right, I'm not, who's taking notes, but did y'all get that? You got it. You
I got it.
The staff got it. All right, so I have a motion on the
I'll
floor.
second it.
Okay, thanks. Let's
Aye.
vote.
Aye.
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 Thanks.
Congratulations. We'll see you again. Okay, I don't see our last application here.
So the roof got it.
Too bad. We missed them. Any other items we want to discuss? Mind coming up to?
Hello, I don't think I've introduced myself to you all, but I'm Kurt, the new development director, so hello. I'll be here from now on, so had a little problems. I was back in Colorado the last time, so. I guess a few things I just wanted to discuss. So I sent it out to all of you about the April 7th training. I just want to verify. I think Michelle was the only person.
Yeah, I have had a computer problem, and I'm trying to recover some emails that have been gone, so.
I just needed to set that with, I think it's Maria Snyder with the NAPC as soon as we could, just had to firm up that date. So that's why we went with that date, because it worked for everybody else.
Yeah, I saw it for the first
Okay.
time yesterday, so.
And we'll try to do that downtown. So I've already asked a few locations, just so, maybe they can go out and take a little walking tour. It just seems like it would be better to be downtown than here, just because it's close to everything. So, but if not, it'll be here.
Inside Q or Hearth or something?
Say it again.
Inside Q on Bay or Hearth?
Yeah, why not? There's enough money. We could have it at the nicest place, why not?
Digital corridor.
That's what I've said.
Yeah.
Oysters and lobster, champagne for everybody.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm just kidding. But the second thing I was going to talk about is between Metters and I, we have created a new TRC process for historic preservation. So the goal of that is for everyone that's coming before you, anything that's major, that we actually have kind of a technical discussion where we all basically have, similar to what you're doing right now for the preliminary, up front. So, the goal is to kind of save a lot of time, I think. And so that a lot of these things can be caught before it comes to you. And so hopefully that starts to work. And, I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to have to check, but it may be an idea that maybe up to 2 members of this committee or board could attend those meetings as regular meetings. So, the thought is to kind of, again, speed things up and to give that, especially for some of the applicants that aren't architects or that are, I think that's probably a big problem for them, right? That costs a lot of money, the more time and energy. And then just taking something before this board and, it changing quite a bit, that costs a lot of money. And so, the goal, I think, would be to and even for the architects, I think a lot of you are architects. I'm not sure. I'm outnumbered, I think, in this room right now. Although my program was with architecture, but I'm just not an architect. The thought would be, if there was more clarity up front,
Yes.
I think it would save a lot of money and time for everyone. And so just some thoughts with that. And, moving forward, maybe we can have another session or a work session, and we can maybe talk about that. Because a little bit I've been here, the opportunity I have is I see things with fresh eyes, but also people come to me and they complain immediately about here are all the problems, right? So I'm hearing it seeing it from a lot of ends. And, one of the chief, I guess, complaints I've heard is the time that it takes to go through a process. And, I think that is a goal that maybe all of us could work on, is how do we make this process easier? How do we make it a little more how do we give people some clarity on the process of what they need to do instead of, just like that last meeting, which was fine, but, there was just a lot of things kind of maybe up in the air. And, maybe if that wasn't the case so much, it would provide that more clarity. So, so I don't know if you're willing to maybe kind of do a work sessions, just your ideas too, things that we could maybe improve in the processes, and how do we maybe get to someone submitting something and going to that technical review committee, and maybe two of you are on that committee and you have some trust, and that maybe they don't come back until they've really dotted a lot of those I's and T's, and that really cut back on time. And also, maybe we should think about reducing the time it takes to get on the Historic Preservation Board, Historic District Review Board, sorry, I'm so used to saying Historic Preservation. Maybe it's a 2-week window instead of a month. I think that could probably, but just some of these ideas, I just want to talk to you. I'm new, I obviously maybe, this is my chance to say these without, being here too long, because you can't blame me too much, but, is that an idea for you? Would you guys be open to that as, maybe just having a work session, or if we don't have too much on the next agenda, just, blocking out an hour or two and just kind of brainstorming some ideas to.
I think it's important that we at least have that conversation.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is we create another level of meetings.
Yeah, no, I think that's the goal, is to cut down on.
I understand that, but if you're going through a TRC type environment, they're meeting, we don't even know about it. They're happening behind the scenes. You come in, you fill out a billing application, you think you understand what you're supposed to do, and you walk in and you talk to the desk down there, and that's where you get your first indication of what you're supposed to do, right? They say, hey, I need 3 sets of drawings. You got to fill out this form. Oh, you're a historic district. You got to go meet the staff related to the National Landmark District standards. There's a whole dialogue goes on down there. Then Bruce steps out, and his group talks about code compliancy.
Yeah, so Bruce will be in all these meetings, and we'll also invite the fire marshal, and, as needed, other departments or other entities that, could. But the idea is, right now, from what I can tell, is if I walked in here with, anything that you saw here today, no one on the current staff was providing them with any expertise other than just the basics of what needed to be submitted. So then that was all basically being done with Metters, like behind the scenes, which is, I think, why you needed the month, since they're in Charleston. And so, I think that's why you're getting, so many staff comments, is because someone's submitting it. Then they're basically going to the meeting to get all the comments. And
Including
if we could
zoning.
go to the if we could go to a technical review committee with Metters and with Bruce and with, member of HBF, with 2 members here, and everybody could just make those comments up front before we're getting to a board. If we could clean up that process, that's similar to kind of development. I'm trying to think, it's the same type of thing, it basically consolidates the time.
Look, everybody doesn't get a say in the process, okay? So you got to be careful what you create.
Sure.
So in other words, if you open Pandora's box to everybody in Beaufort gets to opine on somebody's project before it comes to a committee, that's a problem. So you got to be careful what road you travel.
Sure, it's definitely a technical committee.
Yep.
So.
I've always seen the need to be almost like a concierge service to be able to come in front of the board. Like, and I'm using that term obviously very lightly, but I'm just saying, like, I find that there are people who come who just have no clue what is expected of them. And today was not a good example of a day in which everybody seemed to be more or less represented by a professional. But oftentimes when somebody comes, it's almost, just like this feels unfair to them, because and I realize that it's because of funding that they don't have a professional with them, but so that tends to make me think that it would be, and again, I'm sure it's more funding of an issue, but a concierge type service to help people who are more of the layperson who don't have the funds to hire an architect or a professional.
Are the professionals who don't look at the guidelines and are not either.
Often the times.
Yeah, either aren't familiar with them or choose not to
I have to say I applaud you for this idea because I went through the process less than 2 years ago, and that's why I'm on this board today. It took 7 months to get approval for a simple addition, and I think it's needed. That's needed because if you don't have bukus of money to spend on revision after revision after revision with an architect, this would be a perfect thing to do for those people. If you can pay an architect to keep coming back, that's okay, but most of us can't.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. Right now, we're planning to meet every other week, but we could do it every week. And so the thought is, hey, you make your application, but let's go to this board, right? And so then you can dot all of your i's, cross all your t's, and we have something that's staff. We're making informal comments. We're laying out all of those comments before it comes to you. And if two members of this board were able to attend that, and make informal, not binding comments, I think that would go a long way to speeding up the process for everyone.
I think we need to check into that before we ask sitting board members to attend a preliminary discussion about a potential project.
Sure. Right now, we were going to do it at the staff level, but it was just a thought that, if there was a little more, if there was some buy-in from this board, whether that would be beneficial or not.
Yeah, we've been warned by the city attorney that we are not to know anything in advance.
Okay. I suppose that's something I'll have to check with Bill, because
It's a good idea to talk, it used to be we would talk about projects in the public. In other words, someone would approach you because of what I do for a living, for example, or an architect does. They'd say, well, hey, I'm thinking about doing this building. What are some of the things I need to look for? What's the problem? What does the board normally approve or disapprove? And you're on the sidewalk talking to people about, well, mass and scale is important, and all these other things. You start having this long dialogue, and then 2 months later, a project pops up, and, were you in violation? No, because it was very conceptual at the beginning. You're giving advice. So how do you?
Yeah, every other state I've worked in, this board is a recommending board. It's not you have quasi-judicial power, so I think you're probably right. You could have a work session, but I don't believe you could have. So we'll keep doing the technical review committee as a technical committee, so hopefully we can catch things immediately before they go much further, right? So and the idea is also, instead of making a formal application, let's go to the committee. That's the goal with development, and this is widely done. Let's go to the technical review committee. It's free. It's before you make an application, and get all the comments, and then you can submit the plan. Then you can submit the application, and we can send it right here.
Sure.
So that's also another function of this committee, is to basically act as that technical staff, dot all of your i's and cross all your t's before it comes to this board.
Well,
And so
if you could eliminate the.
I certainly don't want to add
No,
bureaucracy.
you made a good comment. The staff, and we know why they're doing it, all these, like 9 or 10 bullets, and a lot of them, like today's, trees, setbacks, pervious surfaces, these kind of things, they have to do that because it's but it's not part of this board's articulation. In other words, it's not architecture. Designing landscape for the monument is not architecture for us. But if those things were done at a technical review level, and then the physical structure of the ground was done by this board, architecture related, would be totally different. So we didn't have to hear about all that other stuff. They need to weed it out. And that's how it used to be, because you didn't talk about that stuff in this meeting. You talked it at the counter down below before you got your permit.
Yeah, I think we'll go back to that. The problem is, I think Metters is aware, is there was no one here, or when there was someone here, they might not have had the capability to do that.
They did. And we don't want to hear that stuff later after you're mostly done. So it's nice that
the applicant says, I got to, here it happens all the time. I got approved, I still ain't got my letter. Well, and it's not about what we approved. It's usually the stuff they didn't finally get to the staff, because they didn't get it there. They didn't cross the T and dot the I. We've already approved it, and 2 months later going, Mike, how come I sat there in your meeting, I didn't get you approved it, how come I can't get a permit? I'm like, did you get all the paperwork in?
So hopefully this sounds pretty good. Again, it can be before you apply or if you've got a kind of a big project that's got some issues, we'll have the meeting.
And there's got to be a point where not everybody goes to technical review.
Sure, I mean.
A
it's
go,
just-
no-go phase, right? In other words, type of project,
You don't
this
have to go.
project needs it? No, this project does.
Yeah, any minor project we wouldn't go before. Another thing, so if you are interested next month, we could maybe cut out some time just to have some deeper conversation, just some ideas that you have, and think about that. Because I say that because the city council, I have to keep remembering board, city council, so many different, I have so many boards. Anyway, the city council is going to do every third Tuesday is going to start on code changes of the development code. So all of the historic review board rules are in the development code. So this will start being an opportunity to make some changes to the current processes or review processes. So, I was going to invite you to those meetings just because if you want to come, I think it's in your prerogative to come to those meetings. It would be every third Tuesday every month. But in the next few months, if there are some things that you think we should be looking at, Jeremy and Maria and I, to take to the council to make some changes, or if we get to it next year, this is the time to start thinking about that. There's, I've heard a lot of people complain to me in a short period of time about paint and fences and just a lot of things, and demolitions, and, I mean, if
Mike likes you right now.
what are the things I think, that this board thinks that, maybe should be considered, what should be major, what should be minor, what are things that just hot button topics that maybe we can address. I see height as being a big issue. Do we want to do tight transitions? I've talked to Jeremiah about that. What are those things? Do we do transition areas between development? As I'm sitting here today, like with development, we did development guidelines for single family houses, but it might be interesting for us to do guidelines for all development within the historic district, to set guidelines that this board would approve and maybe draft. And so, if you're an architect or a builder, you come in and you basically have guidelines that you can follow, and then, you're basically just saying, yeah, you've met the guidelines. So that's something, maybe that's an idea. So again, I'm just trying to think, what kind of ideas can we do to make this easier on everyone? So, and speed up the process. But anyway.
Well, Stephen Murray liked to say, eating the elephants one bite at a time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, anyway, so if that's okay, like maybe next time we can just spend a little, I'll put an hour. Maybe this will take a few meetings, just some thoughts on.
Normally we do a work session because these sometimes go to 5.
Sure.
Maybe that would make sense.
I'd just like to say I appreciate your approach.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so far, yeah, we'll see in like 6 months. You might say, cut him off. We don't want to hear him anymore. So, all right, that sounds good. So we'll, I think anything's on the table. So anything you think would improve the process.
Great.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Y'all want to look at anything on the calendar now, or have staff send something out?
Let them.
Okay.
Take a motion, we adjourn.
Okay. You're here.
Adjourn.
Great.